Okay, so, you sent in some pretty interesting articles about this whole Ethereum thing. Hitting $4,000 recently, everyone seems to be kind of freaking out about it. And, it seems like we need to kind of do a deep dive into why this is happening.
Right here.
Are these ETFs like the rocket fuel everyone's talking about? Could we see Ethereum break its all-time high? Let's find out.
Well, what's really fascinating here is that, it's not just, it doesn't seem to be some random price pump,
Right.
this recent climb. It seems to be deeply connected to a wave of demand for Ethereum ETFs, specifically in the US.
Okay, so let's break down these ETFs. I know they're a big deal,
hmm
but, just remind me, why is everyone so excited about these things?
Yeah, so think of ETFs as kind of a simple, regulated way for institutions to invest in Ethereum.
Oh,
Before these ETFs, it was a bit of a wild west for institutions wanting to get involved. Now with ETFs, it's as easy as buying a stock. And that's opened the floodgates. We saw a massive $428 million flow into Ethereum ETFs in a single day.
wow.
That's serious institutional interest, and it tells us something
Yeah.
important is happening.
So this is more than just a few wealthy individuals buying in. We're talking about, like, major players shifting their strategies.
Exactly. And this signals kind of a broader shift, growing acceptance of Ethereum by the mainstream financial world. This isn't just a fringe asset anymore.
Okay, that makes sense, but let's kind of bring it back to someone like me or you listening in. What does this actually mean for us if we're thinking about getting involved in the crypto world?
Well, this is where things get really interesting. This ETF boom, it potentially paves the way for even more people to invest in Ethereum. Think about it. Even folks with retirement accounts might soon be able to easily diversify into crypto. It's potentially a whole new wave of investors
Yeah,
entering the market.
that's huge. So with all this momentum, could Ethereum actually break its previous record high of $4,878?
It's definitely possible. We've got these strong ETF inflows, record activity in Ethereum derivatives. And just to clarify for our listeners, derivatives are basically financial contracts tied to Ethereum's future price, often used for hedging or speculation.
Right.
And of course, a very positive market sentiment overall. All signs point to a potential breakout.
That's exciting, but I have to ask. You mentioned positive market sentiment, but I've also read concerns about Ethereum's high gas fees potentially hindering wider adoption. So how do you kind of see those two things playing out?
Yeah, that's a sharp observation. You're right. Gas fees are a real concern. High transaction costs could discourage some users, and that's something Ethereum developers are actively working to address. The success of those efforts will definitely influence long-term adoption.
Okay, so there are definitely challenges alongside this excitement. But what about this idea that all this institutional money pouring in could create its own bubble? Is that a valid concern?
It's always wise to be cautious. While the current price increase seems to be driven by strong fundamentals, those ETF inflows and robust performance in derivatives we discussed, there's always a chance things could get overheated. That's why it's important to look beyond the hype and understand the underlying technology and its potential.
Right. So not just FOMO, but really understanding
Yeah.
the value proposition.
Exactly. And speaking of institutional interests, you brought up an interesting point in your notes about CME Ether futures hitting record levels. This is significant because it tells us something about the motivations of these large investors, especially in the US.
To be honest, I still get a little confused by futures. It's just
Don't worry, it's not as complicated as it sounds.
Yeah.
These CME Ether futures are basically agreements to buy or sell Ethereum. At a set price on a future date, the interesting thing here is that the surge in these futures is largely driven by U.S. investors who are looking for regulated and transparent ways to get involved. CME futures offer that, which is why they're so attractive to institutional investors.
So it's all about that trust and security that these institutions crave. And what's really interesting is that this growth in Ether futures is actually outpacing Bitcoin futures. Ethereum seems to be winning over these big players.
It seems that way. Now the big question is this just a temporary surge, or can Ethereum sustain this momentum?
Yeah, are we in a bubble, or is this the new normal?
Well, it's hard to predict the future, but the current growth seems to be driven by fundamentals. That suggests this isn't just a fleeting trend. The increasing mainstream acceptance of Ethereum, fueled by these ETFs and the performance of derivatives, indicates we could be seeing a lasting shift in the financial landscape.
Okay, so wrapping up, we've seen that Ethereum's on a roll driven by huge institutional interest via ETFs, stronger performance in derivatives, and a growing sense of legitimacy. in the financial world. But, I think the real question for you listening is, given this rapid rise and mainstream embrace of Ethereum,
Yeah.
what other aspects of our daily lives might be impacted by its continued growth? What industries could be disrupted? It's a fascinating question to ponder. Thanks for sending in your research and taking this deep dive with us.